Okay, we're starting.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to our rough cycle. This is our first live video. And today we're going to be kind of going through doing an epoxy core, similar to like a river table. What we're doing here is a little bit like a reverse river table, just kind of like a piece of paradox, build some forms, and we're going to basically just kind of discuss how we're doing this, the whole process, but also, that this is essentially an announcement that we are now carrying Epoxy. So if you are in SF or the Bay Area, if you need Epoxy, you don't have to drive some crazy place to go get it like I used to have to. We have it right here in the city. And if you stay to the end of the video, we're going to give a little holiday discount deal. So stay tuned for that at the end. Essentially, we just take you on a little tour of the facility. Introduce you to everybody that's involved here, and then we'll start to kind of discuss the epoxy core and work through that. So, I guess to start, I'm Clint, and I do most of the woodworking here, from milling to the finished custom projects to kind of the day-to-day operations here. This is Reggie. Hello. This is my miller now. He's doing all my milling. So he's handling all the milling when we get the trees in, starting to work with the kiln, getting stuff dry, and just getting it to be nice material to start working with. This is Jody. Jody is our first point of contact. So she's kind of handling all of our social media, a lot of our marketing, dealing with the clients, kind of being my point for discussing stuff with clients before it comes to me. And then behind the camera, we have Leone. Leone's kind of, I don't know, he just does everything. And I don't know, we'd all be very in a bad place. So. And then this is our guy. This is our local legend, Manzanita Mike. Slab applause. He just brought us a bunch of nice willow pearl this morning, some Manzanita pieces, some nice big old growth redwood slabs, some redwood pearl, and this is all, I forgot, hold on, I'll finish that. But this is Mike, Manzanita Mike, aka Slab Claws, always bringing us some really, really nice stuff that's a little bit outside of the city or just really unique. And then I guess the most important character here at the shop is Calvin. Calvin just celebrated his 12th birthday, little old man now, real good shop dog. So you guys will probably stay tuned mostly for him. But anyway, so I can just show you kind of our facility a little bit. Oh yeah, before we start, I guess, so we kind of couldn't really decide on what color pigment to use in the epoxy. So I guess we'll leave it up to you guys. So we have 4 colors right now that we're kind of working with. We have like an ocean blue. There's a little bit of blue in there. This is a gunmetal, a little bit more of like a chrome, silver gunmetal color. This is called Margarita. It's more like almost like a Caribbean green. And then we got a nice like a hot pink called Fire Truck. So whoever, whichever one gets the most votes, we'll use. So anyway, so we can take a little quick tour of the facility. So as you come in here, all of these racks here, for the most part, it's all dry. And then we have more of like surface slabs, smaller ones over here. These are all surface and pretty much ready to go. Some big redwood slabs on Lombard Street up there. Paradox ones you can turn into a big river table next week. All this stuff here, you can see it's already been processed. Stump stools. Cookies, rounds, smaller stuff for end tables, all sorts of small stuff that's already been processed, ready to be put outside. Same with here, this is a bunch of elf, Golden Gate Park tennis courts, and some sycamore also from the Golden Gate Park tennis courts. This is all going outside to our air dry in the lot, and then hopefully soon we'll come over and it'll go in the kiln, which is in the back here you can see. So this is basically the container that we built into a kiln. We started making these the other day. These are kind of how we're going to transport our rounds, stump stools, all the stuff that's going to kind of tip over, putting these, stacking them up high outside so they get a bunch of airflow. As you can see here, this stuff just kind of in the middle gets processed into smaller pieces. This is all stump stools and rounds and cookies and stuff that needs to be processed still in the inventory. So this is all just kind of like, you know, in the process of moving through the order of events here. This is our mill. This is a Woodmeister LT40. This is a big curve bandsaw mill. This is where the first point of contact where all the logs come in. Logs come in, they get dropped on the floor. Reggie then gets the forklift, starts loading them on, slabbing everything up. From there, we either stack it up, put it outside to air dry, or we put it right in the kiln. And then after the kiln comes out, gets processed, flattened, surfaced, etc. Yeah, then we can work with the wood and start selling the wood. This is our router sled here. We're running a Festool, a big Festool router on a woodpecker slab flattening mill. Really good tool for any kind of flattening. You know, if you don't have a big CNC table, this is probably the way to go. Pretty versatile. Also, while you guys are watching, at any time, if you guys have any questions, just post them down below. We'll answer them. And also, you know, just for future reference, if you guys have any other videos you guys would like to see in the future that we could do, just write in the comments below. This is a little area out here. This is just kind of our area for using the Alaskan mill, so anything that's bigger that we can get on the mill, we do out here with the Alaskan. We're running a Stihl 881 with a 6-foot bar on it. Pretty much does most everything what we need. This is a nice big set of custom legs that we have for that river table that I was saying that we're going to be doing next week. And then over here we got kind of like a little bit of the area where I'm doing some custom work over here. You know, the basic tools, etc. for all that stuff. Like we were talking before about Anthony's mic over here, always bringing us some real special pieces. This is a willow tree from his backyard. Actually, it's got a bunch of really beautiful bird's eye and just a bunch of willow burl. And then we got a monster piece of manzanita, something that you guys will probably never see. I don't even know. Mike won't even tell me where he gets them. Otherwise, you'd have to shoot me. So, if you need big manzanita, I got a guy. So this is some smaller pieces of manzanita, Mike's manzanita. It's beautiful little table base. We're kind of working on one of these ideas too for something in the future. So, going to the showroom now. So, just kind of basically our showroom here. As you can see, kind of up here, we got photos going all the way around here. This is kind of like showing our process from the beginning to the end. You can see our climbers in the tree. You know, the removal process, everything that goes on in the street, everything that goes on site to get these down. So our guy Remy here, back in the day, at the very beginning of this kind of concept, with his Alaskan out there, that's milling a really beautiful piece of English yew from Boast Triangle. That's one of our other guys, Zach here, that's using that big 6-foot Alaskan on big paradox stuff. You know, you can see it getting dropped here, getting on the mill, slabbed up, put in the kiln, and then starting to be worked around. So, I mean, a lot of times we keep smaller furniture, tables, stuff in here for people to check out. So yeah, so I mean, basically that's kind of the showroom right now. And then really what the focus is here is Epoxy. So I've been using Epoxy for a number of years now. I mean, there's a lot of systems out there, three systems, West systems, all these different kinds. But I have to say, I really always like Epoxy the most. They kind of like pioneered this, you know, this liquid plastic for this deep pores. It just works really well. So I'm really glad to be having this, and also you know, being here in San Francisco, when I needed Epoxy, I have to drive to Petaluma like an hour and plus away to go get Epoxy. There's nobody in the Bay Area who's carrying it. So now that we have it here in San Francisco, anybody, if you're in Oakland, San Francisco, South Bay, whatever, we'll be able to get you what you need and you can get it right away. So you don't have no long drives anymore, you know, to get it. So the stuff we're carrying right now is the Flowcast, which is what we'll be using today. This is made for your deep cast river table, your deep cast pours. So anything that's going to be poured thick, you're going to want to use the Flowcast river tables, mold, like, you know, casting stuff in a mold. It's a 2-to-1 application, so the viscosity is close to water. You know, so what it allows it to do, and it's a 72-hour cure, so it allows the time and the viscosity to get into every little pore and every little crack and every little place. And as well, one of the other big problems with epoxy, pouring epoxy, is dealing with the bubbles. So the shorter the cure time, the less time you have to get rid of the bubbles, right? So that's why you see guys using torches all the time to get the bubbles out. Well, this stuff, because it's the viscosity of water and it takes almost 24 hours for it to actually start to gel, you'll have all the bubbles will come out on their own. So it's like it just takes a little bit more of the probability of making an arrow out of your hands. So it's a good product. So we have this in like the what is it, the 4, 12, 30, and 60 liter kits. And as well, we are carrying the UV epoxy. So the UV epoxy is for a different application. That's when you want to do like a finished top, and you want to finish the top with a layer of epoxy and build it up and build it up, so you're going to get that really strong, the durable top that's going to last, right? So this isn't meant for deep pores. This is meant for thin coatings for protecting, you know, the top. So it's UV protected, scratch resistant. It's a good product. And then we have all of your pigments. So both large and small, just your straight colors: red, green, yellow, black, orange, blue. And then we have 3 different smaller. Not smaller, but 3 different pigments, and these are the glitter pigments, the metallic pigments, and the other high, the high metallic pigments. So there's a few different options of those, and then both the UV and the Flowcast should pretty much cover most stuff you're going to do with woodworking. You know, both the fill and the seal. So that being said, we'll go out there, we'll start on that. And again, if you have any questions, just put them down below, and we will answer those as we get them. And yeah, so let's go, let's pour some epoxy. one of his wonderful pieces of manzanita here. Oh! Is there any questions at all?
Nope, no questions came in so far.
Alright, so basically, we're going to kind of start from the beginning. So anytime we're doing an epoxy pour, 99% of all of the work that needs to be done in an epoxy pour, minus the actual cutting, sanding, finishing, is done before making the pour. So your due diligence all comes down to making the forms, sealing the forms correctly, and making sure you go through all the points of due diligence to make sure that once we pour this, there's no problems. Because, for lack of a better term, is once you pour epoxy, shots fired. You cannot turn back. You know, you're gonna pour it in there, you're gonna realize there's one place where it didn't get sealed up, it just starts dripping out the bottom, right? Something that takes 24 hours to cure, the whole entire thing is gonna drip out on the floor before it starts to gel. So what you wanna do is you wanna use, this is HDPE, you can get it in sheets, out of 4x8 sheets, like a sheet of plywood. It's a high density plastic. this takes the least amount of effort to do a pouring, because once we're done, we just undo some of the screws, hit it with a little rubber mallet, they pop right off. Super easy, you can reuse it over and over. There's also other ways to do it. Where I've done it before is by getting a sheet of melamine. Same thing as kind of IKEA furniture, where it has that super smooth white veneer on both sides and this particle board in the middle. That'll work as well too. That stuff's like 50 bucks a sheet. This stuff's like 250 bucks a sheet. But you're gonna be able to reuse this over and over and over, whereas the melamine, once you start screwing it together, you're screwing it to particle board. You're only gonna do it a few times, and then the piece, you can't use it anymore. The other thing you have to do with melamine is you have to coat the whole thing with sheeting tape. This is a pain. It's like, you don't want to sit there for an hour putting tape on something, and in the end you're going to get all these lines in it. So you can use both, but for my suggestion, I always say HDPE it's a better material to use. It's going to give you a longer life, and it's going to give you a better product in the end. So that being said, you can cut it, with pretty much any blade, table saw blade, high tooth, high fine tooth blade, you're going to be good. So we just cut all these. I cut my bottom piece, and then I cut my side rails, all on the table saw. I built my form. I screwed it all together from below and in the corners here. And what I did now is, once I do that, then I take white caulk and I caulk all of the seams. This way, there's nothing that can get out, right? So once the form is built, we know what we're going to do with the form. We can build the form. We're going to take our piece of wood. As we can see, this is a piece of paradox walnut here, the Luther Burbank paradox walnut. And essentially what you want to do before this is you want to get this thing flat on both sides, or at least one side, the side that's going to go down. As you can see with this one, this is the bottom that you can see. So I'm putting the top down and pouring. Whatever way you do it, doesn't matter. Just make sure that the bottom has to be flat. Because when you put it down and then you clamp it down around here to make sure that it goes down and doesn't start floating when you pour the epoxy in, you want to make sure that we're tight as we can be all the way along the bottom here, right? If it's not, we're going to get a bunch of epoxy to go underneath, and then all we're going to do later is we're going to end up removing it, right? So we're going to create more work for ourselves, and we're going to have to end up wasting more material by not doing our due diligence before. Again, when you do an epoxy pour, everything is about the creating the form and the preparation for doing it. Once you mix the epoxy, you pour it, you walk away, it's over. So spend the time, get it flat, get it in here. And then once I got it in here, I just kind of laid it down how I wanted it. I just make my marks where it needs to be cut, make those cuts, falls right in here. And then what I do from there is I have some little leftover pieces of the HDPE. I just cut myself little blocks, put them here, clamp them down this way, clamp the piece of wood down to the form on the bottom, making sure that we have a secure and tight bond here, and we're not going to lose anything underneath. Because remember, time is money and material is money. If you pour too much material, you're wasting money, and then you're going to spend time processing it down and get it away. So you're wasting time and money. Spend the time before you put it in the form, make sure everything's right, and then once you get it like this, now we're just ready to mix, So now that we have our form, we have our piece in the form, we have it clamped down, what I want to do, like anything we're doing with some kind of liquid, concrete, whatever, we want it to be level. If it's not level, it's going to pour out one side, or I'm just going to have something that, again, I'm going to have to do a bunch of work on because I didn't spend the time to do it right the first time. So now I got something that's like on an angle, and I got to surface a bunch of stuff off one side. It just, spend the time, do it right, make sure it's level. Put a level on it both ways.
We got a question coming in.
Sure.
Can you apply epoxy over stained wood?
Technically, yeah, you can. But again, you're going to end up not getting the right bond.
Okay, we got
Right, so, if you notice here, like the cambium, the little layer of a material between the actual sapwood and the bark is I remove, right? So that is essentially something that's in between the wood and the epoxy. It's not going to give you the best bond ever. Over time, there's going to be a stress point, and that cambium is going to release from the wood, and it's never going to. So you could pour epoxy on like wood. What are you? Sorry, did you say stained wood or finished wood?
Stained wood.
Stained wood, yeah, you should be able to. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Stained wood, you should be able to do because all you did was change the color of the wood by adding an oil to it, but you still have the porous wood actually, right? And you want some kind of a little bit of a texture, like on the live edge. I sand it with 80 grit, and that way when I pour the epoxy bonds really well because there's texture there. There's some friction there to grab onto. Whereas if you got something that's like super smooth, it's not going to bond as well as it is to something that's porous. So as long if it's stained, that's fine, but just make sure it's not stained and then sand it to a high finish. You know, you want to sand it to the high finish, put the stain on. Once the stain dries and adheres, then you can do the epoxy and then put the finish on. But you would never want to put. Before I kind of thought you meant, can you put epoxy on something that has an oil finish or some kind of finish on it? I would say no, don't do that. You want to do it wood to epoxy. So yeah, you can do that with the stain.
Yeah. We got another question.
Sure.
Yeah. What's the name of the product that can help get rid of the bubbles?
So the product that we're going to be using today, this is called Flow Cast, and this is made for deep cast pouring. And the reason this will get the bubbles out on its own. I don't need to do anything to it. I don't need to add anything to it. And the reason that that's like that is because it's a 2-to-1, which and the viscosity is like water, right? So essentially, it being water and it taking so long to gel, the bubbles will rise up to the top just like in a glass of water, and they'll just pop on the surface, right? So this material is made to get the bubbles out on its own without you having to do anything on your own. You know, the only one thing I could say is if you really want to feel like you want to make sure 100% there's no bubbles, you could have a torch, like a little, just a propane torch, and just on the top, and the bubbles come to the top, and then they'll pop. But this stuff, it should do all the releasing of all the air in the epoxy on its own. Right on. So now that we have this level, it's ready to go. Did we know you decided on a color yet?
Nope, no one.
I believe the one, I think we got one for this green color.
Yeah.
One, but we could go with whatever. If anyone wants to do a last minute vote for the color,
There we go.
we'll give you a couple seconds.
All right, well, we don't have to add the pigment just this very second. So what we'll do is we'll start by pouring our.
We got another question coming in. Let's see. We have from Jardine Chung. You said you sanded the side with 80 grit. Was that just with an orbital sander or?
That's actually the one that I did this one with. Is actually like a paddle sander, like a paddle, like a sand attachment for a grinder. So it's like, you know, so when I got to take off the cambium or take off super heavy duty stuff, I do it with like a 4-inch grinder, and just buy like 36 and 80 grit these paddles for them, and they'll do way more take off way more material than like a regular orbital sander. So, and then always like, you know, this, if you're gonna pour it a solid color, you're never gonna see the live edge. So you can actually have, like if you come over to this side, you can see here that you can see the actual, what the grinder and the left there, right? So it's rough and it doesn't need to be perfectly smooth. You're never gonna see it because it's gonna be a solid color. If you wanna do clear, then yeah, I would say you're gonna have to sand up to 120. Make sure that it's got some kind of texture there for the epoxy to bond to. Yeah, that's, you know, just a little bit of texture. The reason that I use I'll show you really quick just in case you want to know. So this is just a basic little 4-inch grinder, and this is just the wheel for it. So it's just, this is like an 80 grit. I have a 36 grit too. This will just take off 10 times the amount of material that a regular sander will. I usually use that for live edge, bark, stuff. With bay laurel, the bark never wants to come off, so you gotta use something like that. Alright, so yeah, I hope that answered your question. So, okay, so we're gonna start. So this is a 2-to-1. We know we're gonna mix 10 liters. This is gonna take 10 liters. So, we need 2-to-1. I guess we're gonna go what? 3.33. 3 parts of that will make 1, right? So, that should do it. So, this is 4 liters, 4 liters, 4 liters, making 12. So we're gonna go 6.66 of our resin, and then we're gonna go 3.3 with our hardener. So here we're gonna add first, this is our resin. It's 4 liters right here. I'm gonna let that all come out. Reg, you wanna hold this for me, brother? Yeah. And then the good thing about this too is like, you know, sometimes you use tabletop epoxies and stuff in 24 hours, sure. But that just means that like they're done in 24 hours, but they fire off in like 45 minutes to an hour. So when you start mixing, you really have a very limited amount of time to work. Luckily with this stuff, you got a long time, so you can mix it.
We got a question coming in. Yeah, this is from Annette. Do you need texture for the epoxy to adhere better?
It definitely helps. If it's too smooth, it'll bond, but you're always going to have to worry about in the long run, is that bond going to be super strong for a very long time? The more texture that you have, the more places it has for the epoxy to bond to. If it's too smooth, it's just never, it's like trying to get epoxy in glass to bond. It'll bond, but it's not a great bond, you know? So I would suggest always have a little bit of texture, even like a 120. 120 is pretty good. So that's 4 liters right there, so we're gonna go up to 6.6, just above the 6.5 line. Accurate right there, huh? Alright, so this one's still good. Then we're just gonna go right up to the 10 mark on here. So now we're on our hardener. So, now that we got this done, do we have anybody else reply about color, or are we just going to go with green?
I think green was like 5 to 1. 1 blue and 5 green.
Alright, so we're going green. Also, just, you know, this is just basic. This isn't the best one. The other one, actually, it was just destroyed. I tried to find one this morning, I couldn't. But this is a plastic one. The ones made for epoxy, they have like rubber paddles. So as soon as you let it, like when you let it dry, then you just like bend them, and then all the epoxy just falls off and it's brand new again. The metal ones, my one looks like a lollipop now. So we got the, so this is all mixed up as far as poured together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of our green here. And you know what, I mean, you can, if you're trying to match a color over and over and over, then what you wanna do is you wanna get like the right volume of that color. So 1 teaspoon of green, 1 teaspoon of blue, 1 teaspoon, whatever. So whatever that is, but if we're just gonna mix this one up, I'm just gonna kind of do it by eye today and just kind of see when I see the epoxy look like the color I want it to. So we could just take this just a little bit here, just put it down in there. I'd like a pretty heavy green on this one. I don't really want to have any kind of be able to see through it opaque at all. So we'll put that in. We'll see what that starts to look like. Pretty cool, but I think I could even see more in there. So Reggie, you want to dump some more pigment in there? Keep going, Reggie. Yeah, go more. There you go. There we go. All right, that should be good now. Now we got that dark. Right now that, I mean, this is basically like mixing a bucket of water. So you're going to want to mix for about 5 minutes just to make sure that everything mixed out real good. All the pigment gets mixed in real good.
Calvin.
Go play with Mike. Calvin,
Wow.
go play with Santa. What's he doing?
We got it.
Ball in his mouth.
That's actually pretty cool green. It'll work pretty well. Like the paradox walnut, a lot of times in the sapwood, it gets this like typical like English walnut. You get that really grayish silver sapwood, and then with the paradox, you'll get these yellow and green like hues in the sapwood. So I think this will actually work pretty well.
We got a question coming in.
Sure, what's up?
Let's see here. Annette says, how do you clean the epoxy off of your mixing tool so that you can reuse it?
Yeah, so I was just saying just a little bit earlier, if you look online, you can find like epoxy paddle, like a drill paddle for epoxy, and what they do is all of like the little flaps on it are like rubber. So what you do is you mix your epoxy, you take your paddle, put it somewhere, wherever, you know, out of the way that's not going to drip all over everything, or and just let it dry, and then after like, you know, 2 or 3 days when it hardens up, you can just bend the little pieces and it'll fall right off. Actually, Randy, you want to go, you know, the little, for the glue, that little rubber tray for the glue?
Or I'll look for it.
Here, you want to hold this? I'll show you. Try to just keep that going. So essentially, this is like, it's the same principle. It's like a rubber. Obviously, it's a harder rubber. This is really soft. This is for glue, but same principle. If the glue or the epoxy is then hardened onto this thing, what you do is you just bend it, and then it all comes off, right? Super easy. And then your paddle's brand new every time. You know, I mean, I have like a metal one that I got when I first started, and I mean, it turned into like a lollipop, you know, because it just hardens and can't really take it off. With something like this, you just look online for like a rubber epoxy drill paddle. Well, I think we're pretty good now. I don't think we can mix that up any better.
Wow, it's
So
very,
just zip it there, Reg, a little zip, zip. There you go.
the viscosity is very
Right on, yeah. So
high
you know,
quality.
We're gonna give it just a second. Let whatever bubbles in there come up, and then just put that. You know what? Let's just go throw this bad boy outside. Oh yeah. What else? Rubber glove or latex gloves always help. Just so you don't get it all over you. All right, so I mean, basically everything's ready. Not really much anything to do now. Like I said, once you mix up the epoxy, once you've done all this, pour it. Not really anything else to do, except not bump into it, not let a bunch of dust land on it. You know, basic stuff like that. So, give it a shot.
All right, let's do it. All right, actually,
You know what? One last thing before we more talk about all this due diligence. So. The other great stuff about this is that it's designed for this, so it keeps the heat down. So normally, you know, we don't want to be pouring super deep. We want to pour up to like 1.25 inches on deep river tables. But something like this, we can pour it a little bit thicker because we're not going to have a ton of epoxy in this thing. You know what I mean? It's going to be like a fairly small amount. Now, if this is a huge river table, then yeah, we're gonna want to probably pour it in like two different times.
We got a question coming in.
Sure.
Annette says, does the product or air have to be at a specific temperature?
No, I mean, you definitely want to be working. Well, yeah, I mean, there's temperatures you don't want to work in, like something like super hot, super cold. You don't want to work in. I mean, you definitely want to have it as close to like, I wouldn't say room temperature, but you know what I mean, like, you know, the closer it is to like a good medium temperature that you're comfortable in is going to be the best for this stuff to. So you can see all the bubbles start coming right to the top right away on this stuff. If you ever use, you know, 24-hour epoxies, you'll realize that like you have to sit there a whole hour and just wait for them to come up. I mean, these are like right to the top.
Another question came in.
Yep.
How do you know how much epoxy you need to mix it?
Okay, so I mean, what you need to do is you need to calculate the volume, and you can either, you know, become a mathematician, figure out your equations to do this, or you can easily just go online and go epoxy volume calculator, and it'll ask you how long by how long. It's essentially length, width, thickness. So on something like this, what I do is, okay, it's like 47 by like 6, you know, by 3, by 2. I kind of say, okay, 2.25. I'll say 47 by the average of like, I went I think 4.5 on this one, and then the thickness of 2.25. And then I did this one, so I did 3 points. 1, 2, 3. What I do is I kind of like figure out what this is, right? This is like 3 by 18. I mean, we're not building a piano here, so we're not going to be like, you know, we might have a little tiny bit left over in the end. So it's not going to be down to like the drop. But what I do is I just kind of average my width over the length, and then I get a pretty good educated guess. And then what I do is I got this one, this one, this one, then add them all together. And it gave me like 9.87 meters. So I said 10, because we definitely have a ton of other pieces here that I can just take this little tiny excess and dump it into.
New question
Yep.
from Jacob. Do you ever have pegs sticking out of the wood for the epoxy adhere to, or the surface is enough?
You know what, to be honest, you know, if you really want to go ahead and do that, it's never a bad idea. You know, that's just a fact. You know, you're going to add something, like even when I used to do concrete, you know, back in college, anytime we would tie an old slab into an existing slab, or a new slab into an existing slab, you go and you drill down, you bore into it, put rebar in, epoxy, and then that would add, they're like dowels essentially. It's not going to hurt, but this stuff has been designed specifically to use in this application. So as as long as you have, like I said, 80 grit along the live edge, where if you looked at it, you'd be like, oh, that looks terrible. You see all the swirl marks in it, but we're never gonna see it, right? Because we're pouring your color. So I think just a little bit of texture, you're more than good, you know? But again, if you want to add dowels, it doesn't hurt for sure. But you can see all the bubbles on this already come to the top. That was like really fast. We're just gonna kind of put some over these little spots here. Just make sure we got all this, everything's kind of covered. And we're like perfect right now. We don't even really need to go anymore. Reggie, you want to find another piece that we can pour some of this into?
Okay.
I mean, we got a bunch of stuff over there. Find something that I don't know. Find anything. Good. Looks like we're pretty good here. No problems with the form. It's always a good sign. Yeah, I mean, you gotta, like I said, I keep saying, it goes back to the due diligence of all the prep work going into the pour. Imagine right now that it's going dripping out of the wall. I mean, if you have a way to fix that, like, I'd love to know, because once it's running, I mean, how do you plug the whole water? With a cork? Or if it's a pinhole where it's like, I mean, there's no way you can jam some caulk in there, but it's not going to dry. It's just going to start dripping right through it. Once it starts dripping, it's over, man. You're like, there's nothing you can do with it. You can pull the forms and the epoxy goes everywhere, or you can just let it sit there and collect in a bucket and then just look at a big thing of money that you just flush down the toilet. So, again, epoxy is all about the preparation. You know what I mean? So, the last thing we had talked about, kind of like when we first started the video, was that we were gonna, do a little surprise discount deal at the end. So, we're getting towards the end of the video now. So, we'll announce that. How long? Is it a certain amount of time?
Until the new year.
Okay, so until January 1st, 5% off all Epoxy products in store. So come check us out. Come stop by, at least, check out the operation, see what we got here, come pay us a visit and grab some Epoxy and some nice slabs of wood and start making some stuff. Yeah, I don't think there's any more we can take in here. Find anything, Red? Here? No, I meant like a piece of wood. We can just throw it in something for now. Do you have anything dry over there? What about that? What about all those chunks over there? That elm and stuff.
Michael is asking where we're located.
We are located in Brisbane, California. We're like 500 feet south of the city limit of San Francisco in Brisbane. So just between South City and SF. So right in the corner of, like basically corner of Geneva and Bayshore. 7 Mile House, right across the street from the 7 Mile House.
25 Industrial.
25 Industrial Way, Brisbane, 94005.
Do you ship? Asked Jacob.
That would be something Jody can answer for you.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
I can't answer that. Yes, we do ship slabs. You can find them online on our website at arborupcycle.com. So you can browse there and then let us know. We also have more slabs in the warehouse here that aren't quite on the website. So if you don't find anything you like, just give us a call or email us and we can get you what you need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know there was another question. If I can answer that, maybe.
Yeah, it's let's see. How will you finish the pieces?
Oh, maybe I can't answer that.
Yeah, Clint.
I Facebook and Instagram, social media, all social media channels, what the finished product looks like. So just stay tuned, and Clint will be right back.
I think we got another question from Annette. Yeah. So once it's dry, how do you finish the top of the wood since you're filling in the hole on top? Oh, okay. That would be a good question for Clint.
Yeah,
I'm pretty.
We'll go get Clint.
Yeah. Clint. Wow.
All right, so yeah, thanks for joining us.
One last question.
Okay, yeah, if you guys got questions, keep sending them.
Yeah. Annette says, once it's dry, how do you finish the top of the wood since you're filling in the hole on top?
Sorry, what did you say again?
Yeah, I got confused. So, how do you finish the top of the wood since you're filling in the hole on top?
Okay, so essentially, if I'm getting you right, how do you put a finish on the epoxy, right? I mean, the epoxy is almost the same as the wood. When you're sanding it, when you're putting a finish on it, it's like it reacts the same as wood. So I would pour all this. Like we have these couple little holes and these cracks here. What we would do is once we pull this from the form, I would put it back on the sled, surface it again really quick so it's perfectly flat, flip it, do the same thing. From there, I would just sand it to a high finish, 220. And then I would just put on the finish like whatever, like I use water soil most of the time, or Rubio monocoat. Goes on just the same as it was if it was just a solid piece of wood. Same as if it was solid wood or if it has epoxy in it. You might be able to see, I can kind of show you right here. Let's see real quick.
Michael asked, do you have finished pieces to show?
Yeah, so this is what we're going to grab right now. I don't have anything that's like that size of an epoxy pour, but these are some pieces that are in process for us. They'll give you a little bit, so same thing here. This is epoxy right here, right? So you sand it the same way, and then, for lack of a better, but with just, put a finish on it, it's gonna look nice and smooth, perfect with the wood. So I hope that answered your question. I hope that's what you were trying to ask, is how do you finish the epoxy once you fill the hole. Same as the wood, exact same as the wood.
Do we, another question, do we sell Rubio?
We do not sell Rubio. The only one that we're going to carry, well, we're not carrying at this moment, but the one we will be carrying as a finish is going to be the Walrus soil. Something I've been really, really happy with, both their furniture kit and the cutting board kit. So Rubio, no, but Walrus soil we will be carrying. I know if you want to get the Rubio, you can go to Center Hardware here in SF, and they carry it.
Crystal asked, I missed the beginning of the show. Will the video be available for viewing later on?
I think so, right? Those things, they get saved as a normal video.
Yeah, we're gonna post it on our Facebook and Instagram so everyone can watch it later on.
Yep. And again, if you guys have any questions, you can always just send us a DM on Instagram or Facebook, and just let us know what you want to know, and if we know the answer and we can do it, we'll tell you. And then we'll try to do more of these, maybe once a week, once every other week, and just kind of do some stuff that we're doing around here, because it's, whatever, if you guys have questions, or maybe we'll just do it as we get topics to discuss with you guys. So let us know, in the comments below if you have ideas for future videos for us, what would be good for us to do, what you guys have questions for, and all that stuff, and try to start answering all your guys' questions. Good? Is there any more questions?
No, I think we're good.
All right, well, I think we're going to cut it then and try to get back to work for the day. So, if you need Epoxy, come see us in Brisbane, South San Francisco. We have it in store here. And all your slabs, furniture, whatever, come see us and get something San Francisco for yourself.